Monday Night Football. The Atlanta Falcons are on the road in Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. My best bets are on the way today. Got a couple player props. Then I'll talk about the end of the game, who I think wins, covers, as well as the over and the under. If you are new, my name's Austin from Calling Our Shot. Thank you for coming out to the video and watching. Now, I won't recap how we did on Sunday. I'll do that on Thursday Night Football with a full week 2 recap. It was a pretty good 1 o'clock window. Zach Moss kind of nuked our weekend. I think we lost about 1 unit, which is a little unfortunate, but we'll dive into that a little bit more on Thursday. Without further ado, let's just kind of dive into this game and look at this Monday Night Football game to close this week. Now, there is a free square right now for new users on Underdog Fantasy. If you've never used Underdog, I certainly encourage you to do it. We were this close to cashing our 5-leg entry. It was Kyron Williams that hurt us, but we still made some money there. Again, if you are new to Underdog, you'll get this Jalen Hurts free square when you sign up using our code COS. They'll also match your first deposit up to $1,000, like a 50% match. So if you deposit $100, they'll give you an extra 50. Now you got 150. Deposit, 200. Now you get an extra 100. Now you have 300. I think you understand what that means. Definitely make sure you use that link in the description or code COS, and they'll give you the Jalen Hurts free square to use however you want. At the end of this video, I do have an Underdog Fantasy entry. I think turns $20 into like $160 or something like that. Let's dive into the plays though today. The first one will be Bijan Robinson. Over 14.5 rushing attempts, minus 128 on FanDuel. I'm surprised to see this line at 14.5. I thought this would be closer to 15.5. Normally, we see stud running backs that play a lot of snaps get a line closer to 17.5. That's kind of what we saw out of guys like Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, and those kind of workloads. And we saw in week 1, Bijan kind of dominated this backfield. I don't expect it to be any different. We think about how Zach Robinson, their offensive coordinator, is coming away from the Rams, a team that really like to use just one running back to kind of let that guy get into some rhythm instead of rotating in a bunch of different guys. And we saw in week 1, Bijan played 89% of snaps compared to just 18% for Tyler Algier. I mean, in those snaps, he had 18 carries, obviously cashing this rush attempts. Rush attempts are synonymous with carries. 68 rush yards, a decent, but the Falcons only ran 50 total plays, so pretty low play total count. They were 2 for 9 on third down. I don't need to tell you this. If you watched the Falcons game, you would know their offense didn't look all too good. Kirk Cousins looked nervous back there, and it's kind of expected, a guy coming back from an injury like that. And they really sucked in the second half. In the second half, they had 6 drives. None of them they gained more than 13 yards. They had a couple turnovers, 3 turnovers in the full game. They obviously lost to the Steelers by 8. They got nothing going, and so that's kind of why they ran 50 total plays. They couldn't sustain drives. Well, if they can sustain some more drives here, I think we could see some Bijan Robinson carries and even more. Heck, he still cashed this over in week 1 despite not a great game for his offense. And we saw in week 1 the Eagles are a pretty fast-playing team. Now with Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator, they're going to play with a little bit more pace. They ranked 5th in neutral pace. And while they do not have A.J. Brown tonight, we'll talk about that maybe later on in this video, I do think that they're still play pretty fast, and maybe that helps this Falcons defense get off the field. But in week 1, like I said, they played pretty fast. They ran 74 plays. The Packers still ran 58. So this was a fast-paced game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. You saw the Packers, they had 21 rush attempts. 16 of them went to Josh Jacobs. Obviously, that could be a similar split if we can get 20 to 22 carries for the Falcons. Wouldn't shock me if Bijan's toting the rock 15 of them. Jordan Love at 34 pass attempts. Now, I anticipate Kirk Cousins gets closer to his pass attempts line, which is about, I think, 31, 32.5. But at the same time, the Packers had some quick strike touchdowns. They had a 70-yarder to Jaden Reed. I don't know if this Falcons offense has that same quick strike potential like the Packers do. They do have some big play guys, like obviously Bijan could take one to the house, or Darnell Mooney and whatnot, but outside of that, I think this is more going to be a long, sustained drive type of offense this season, which works to our favor. We want those drives where Bijan could potentially get 4, 5, 6 rushing attempts. So I like this one a ton. We're not going to bank on Bijan being efficient, just getting the rock enough. The Eagles are a tougher defense to run on. They do have a pretty good defensive line, but I still like this Falcons offensive line. I think they can create some holes for Bijan to where he can gain, 6 or 7 yards on a first down, and we get into a 2nd and 3, probably another rush attempt, and he can just pile up those rush attempts and maybe rush yards too. So I really like this one. I'm not too high on the Eagles tonight without A.J. Brown. He's obviously one of their biggest, if not biggest, playmaker on offense. Obviously, they now have Saquon Barkley, but when it's man on man, Jalen Hurts is looking A.J. Brown's way. Now he doesn't have it. We still have A.J. Terrell, a very good cornerback for the Falcons, who probably follows around Devontae Smith. And then they have very good safety. So wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see Devontae Smith getting some double coverage and be like, yo, Jahan Dotson, go beat us. Fine, we'll live with that. So I do like Bijan to go over this rush attempts because I think the Falcons can keep this game close. And obviously, we want some rush attempts in all 4 quarters. I really like Bijan's over 14.5 rushing attempts as my favorite play of the day for just 1 unit. I do have another play on the same side for the Falcons. It is a half unit play, and it's just a half unit because of the first quarter receiving yards prop, and that's for Drake London over 7.5 first quarter receiving yards, -113 on FanDuel. Now, first quarter props can be obviously a little bit volatile because, you have one quarter and that's it. But on Sunday, we experimented with one. Mark Andrews never got a target. I think Drake London gets some targets here. And I'm only playing it for half unit because I don't need to throw a full unit on a first quarter prop. But I do like this one here. We had some good success in the NBA back in those first quarter props. See if we can translate that in some NFL action. Now, if you had Drake London in fantasy football in week 1 or any of his props in week 1, you got wrecked if you took any overs. In week 1, London played 100% of snaps, which you love to see. The problem was 2 receptions, 3 targets, 15 receiving yards. Joey Porter Jr. just had him clamped up, and he was absolutely terrible. And obviously, Kirk Cousins didn't look good. We've already talked about that before. Kirk Cousins, we know how good of a QB has been in the past, and obviously still knocking off some rust here. But I would anticipate, we know he knows he has to get the ball to his best playmakers, and there's not many receivers, arguably none, better than him in this offense. So I would be surprised if Zach Robinson, Kirk Cousins don't find a way to get Drake London involved here. The Eagles secondary, a step back from the Steelers that they played last week in terms of at least their number 1 guys. Darius Slay, obviously a great name, but he's towards the end of his career. I think Drake London will get some targets early in this one on the first drive, maybe their second drive, because I imagine they only get 2 drives in this first quarter unless they start with the ball. Then maybe you see them get a couple more, maybe 3. But let's be honest, they're probably going to get 2 drives here, and I think he'll get some opportunities. I'm not saying Drake London's going to go off for 30 yards in the first quarter, but I think he'll get some opportunities, which is all we're looking for. If he can throw it to him once, all he needs is 8 yards here, and I think he will get a couple targets to get that job done. Even if Darius Slay is following him around, Drake London did play 17 plays out of the slot last week, so they're moving him around in the offense, which is kind of a Zach Robinson offense. They're going to get that. I mean, we saw him do that with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua with Sean McVay as well, so they're going to move their guys around, and I'd be shocked if Drake London isn't involved early tonight. Look, he didn't do anything last week. His fault. Kirk Cousins' fault. The whole offense's fault. Now you had a little bit of a much better matchup in terms of passing yards for Kirk Cousins. I think Drake London gets involved early. I'm only doing it a half unit, but I really do think Drake London over 7.5 first quarter receiving yards is a pretty solid play to make. I don't mind Drake London's full game over or his over in receptions. However, if he's not getting involved early, I don't know when it's coming. So I'll take the over 7.5 first quarter. If it could cash on the first drive, that'd be awesome. I think it honestly does cash on the first drive. So Drake London, 8 yards. That's what we need. A third play in this game will be day 2 of the ladder challenge. If you know the ladder challenge, we do those same game parlay type things. It'll be in this game. So I'll be playing that for 1 unit. I'm not going to talk about it here because I haven't made it yet. I'm going to just get this video live, work on some other things, and then get into it. So again, you can check that out. It'll be on the YouTube shorts, and it will be posted all on the social medias. Let's talk about who I think wins and covers in this game. I do lean the Eagles to win, but I do think I like the Falcons plus 6.5 a lot more than just obviously betting the Eagles or the Eagles spread. I have a slight lean to the under. Earlier this week, if you watched our week 2 best bets video, we talked about every single game. I did have a lean to the over, but with A.J. Brown's injury, I'm not too high on this Eagles offense. They're going to still run the ball, but I don't mind the Falcons defense. Sure, they faced the Steelers last week. They didn't do a terrible job stopping the run. Their offense just set them up for failure. I mean, we had so many turnovers, basically gifting the Steelers the ball in great field position. I like what their defense did. I really think the Falcons defense is a pretty solid unit. Their new head coach, defensive minded. He's been a very good defensive head coach, or at least a D coordinator in his career. I like this Falcons defense, and I think their offense gets something going. And I really do think that they cover the plus 6.5. I don't know if they win. So maybe if you want to bet the Eagles to win, maybe 1 to 13 points. I like that. But I do like the Falcons plus the 6.5. Slightly into the under, but I like the Falcons plus 6.5 a lot more than that. And then finally, we wrap up with an Underdog fantasy entry. A reminder, Jalen Hurts free square when you sign up with code COS. They'll also match your first deposit up to $1,000. Take advantage of that. Here's what I'm running with. Drake London higher than 4.5 receptions. They had a first half line. I'm not going to take the first half line. I think it's the receptions. I think, like I said, I think they get involved early. The 5 receptions is a little juiced on the books, but I do think that he gets the ball a good amount tonight, and that's the number 1 guy that Drake London or that Kirk Cousins is looking for. Drake London's by far their best wide receiver. Stop with the Ray McLeod, garbage. Throw it to your best player, and that's Drake London. Bijan Robinson, 15 rush attempts. We have some push equity there. I think he gets 16, 17 tonight. Jalen Hurts, lower, 36.5, longest completion. This was, if I had to bet an under, was the one I looked at. The only thing that kind of scared me off as a straight bet is that you look at the Falcons, they ran I think the 6th or 8th highest single high safety. So if you are going to run some deep shots, you could run them down the sidelines. And we know Jalen Hurts isn't afraid of launching it. Jahan Dotson is not a bad wide receiver at any stretch. So maybe we see Jalen take some more shots down the field instead of trying to dink and dunk his way down the field. It is a strong lean, which is why I put it in here. Young Waiku, though, higher 1.5 field goals. I don't anticipate the Falcons being a very aggressive offense when it comes to going for it on 4th down in the red zone. But I do think that they were able to move the football. We talk about, mostly every single team is starting at the 30-yard line. So you can get maybe 1 or 2 first downs. Heck, you might be in field goal range by then. I think Young Waiku bangs home 2 field goals tonight. One that I almost did as a straight bet. But I'm only going to do 2.5 units on this game. A reminder, we got 1 unit on Drake, 1 unit on Bijan over 14.5 rush attempts, a half unit on Drake London first quarter receiving yards, and then another unit on the day 2 ladder, which hopefully we can cash and move to day 3. We'll worry about that a little bit later on today. You guys have a great day. Let me know your favorite picks down below. Let's have a good end to week 2, and hopefully we can continue that momentum into a week 3 where we're getting some more data. We have a long season. Let's absolutely dominate. I'll see you guys back again in the next one. Have a great Monday. I'll see you guys again later. Peace.